this week. Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Glad we could all be here. Marcia, we don't know.
Here I am.
Who's there? Is
Marcia
Marcia
Wiener?
Hi, Marcia.
Hi,
Marcia.
And Peggy is still silent.
I'm still silent.
It is Peggy Frank. I recognize the voice.
I'm
Hi,
here.
Peg.
You're right, it is. I just
How
have
you-
to figure
How
out
you
how to
feeling?
do it.
How are you feeling?
I'm
Good.
doing okay.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear.
I just can't.
So, welcome. Okay, all right.
Can I be, before
Can
or
you,
after,
before we start? Yes,
before
ma'am.
or after, can I make any announcement of the Shabbaton?
Sure. I want you to do the end.
I do it at the end.
Do it
because
at the
by-
end.
then
Right.
I'll-
By then, she may even have the flyer.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So welcome. Our topic today is what we call ethical wills. I'm going to share for the most part. This is an article that I wrote in preparation for a program discussion, a workshop, however you want to define it. Do I have to keep turning your way there, Les? No? Okay. All right. You won't feel alienated and left out. All right.
Not at all.
So I wrote this actually, it was in November 1994. Okay. Not much has changed since then. But so I'm going to be reading and highlighting some of the things that I wrote. And then, believe it or not, just last week I received the latest edition of the journal that's published for the Central Conference of American Rabbis, which has scholarly articles. It has professional articles, professional development things, and whatever, and poetry, liturgy that members of the rabbinic conference might be writing for themselves. Lo and behold, believe it or not, this is a poem that was written by Rabbi Pamela Wax, who I haven't seen in many, many years, but I did know her a long time ago, entitled Ethical Will. Okay, so there's Bashert, right? Okay, so those of you who may be watching from home or on Zoom may already know or have seen a copy of Pam Wax's Ethical Will poem, and I'm going to give you a bunch of other examples as well. So here we go. Judaism believes in recognizing our past, in trying to perfect and improve our future, and handing on the best that we can to our children. Inspire them, Vishinantam levanecha, teach your children diligently, whatever. There's a way of doing that, the way of doing all three of those that we have inherited all the way back, as Michael and I were talking before, all the way back to the Torah. Right? And we call that an ethical will. We sum up the insights gained over a lifetime and we leave them in the form of a charge to those who will be reading our ethical wills or learning from them. It's a pattern that goes all the way back to the Torah. Jacob, for those who study Torah in the Torah study class, okay. Jacob, I think it's chapter 48 of Genesis. Jacob has this long blessing and ethical will, if you so choose that term. No, actually, I was wrong. It's Genesis 39. I self-correct. I look down at my notes. All right, Genesis 39. Jacob charges each of his sons with what he hopes that they will do, what they inherit, and what they will carry on for themselves. The book of Deuteronomy, which you might know, is a repetition of the first 4 books of the Torah. That's Moses's ethical will, in a sense. It's his charge as well as his blessing to the people. In the book of First Kings, when I'm quoting or paraphrasing, when King David's life was nearing its end, he instructed his son Solomon, and granted there's all kinds of issues of which of his sons will inherit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Solomon, according to tradition and according to the biblical literature, Solomon is the one who carries on the dynasty. And David's on his deathbed, and he says to his son Solomon, I am going the way of all the earth. Be strong and act like a man, which I would be a mensch, let's say that way, okay? Solomon may not have meant it in that context, but keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in God's ways, following God's laws, commandments, rules, and admonitions, as taught by Moses, so that you may succeed in whatever you undertake and wherever you go, okay? V'chazakta v'hayita le'ish lema'an taskil is the Hebrew. You should have hazakah, which is strength, and that will lead you towards haskalah, which is success and prosperity. So with those gifts or with those legacies as provided in the Torah and the Tanakh and the Bible, throughout the generations, Jewish parents have accepted the need and responsibility to give ethical Jewish direction to their children. Many of the most moving examples of ethical wills come not from the great scholars, although we do have some of them, but from ordinary Jews. You and me are what the rabbis call Amcha, the people, if you will. Karl Marx calls it the proletariat, right? But, okay, all right. But the people, ordinary Jews who struggle to impart their thoughts to their children. For example, in the 14th century, okay, there was a man named Eliezer the Levite, Eliezer Halevi, a simple man who lived in Mainz in the Rhineland, and his will is typical of the ethical wills that Jews handed down in the Middle Ages. These are the things which my sons and daughters shall do at my request. They shall go to the house of prayer morning and evening. Their business must be conducted honestly in dealings both with Jews and Gentiles. They must be gentle in their manners and prompt to accede to every request. They must not talk more than is necessary. By this, they will be saved from slander, falsehood, and frivolity. Needless to say, I have crossed out the line where it says, especially the women. All right, okay.
You gotta show it.
All right. They shall never turn away a poor man empty-handed, but must give him what they can, be it much or little. My sons and daughters, is that the right page? That's not the right page. My sons and daughters should live in communities and not isolated from other Jews, so that their sons and daughters may learn the ways of Judaism. I earnestly beg my children to be tolerant of all people, as I was throughout my life. Happy is the one who toils in Torah, for this gracious toil fixed daily times of long or short duration, for it is the best of all works that a man can do. He means that a person could do, not only man or woman, because by this time already they acknowledged that women were literate. Jewish women were literate, and they could read and they could study. Put me at the right, and then in my burial, put me at the right hand of my father, and if the space is narrow, I'm sure he loves me well enough to make room for me by his side. Okay, all right, all right. Okay, that's for the end. I got these out of order. All right. A few more modern examples of the ethical will. All right. A colleague of mine, again, back in the 80s and 90s, We all remember those days, right? Okay, so it was the 80s and 90s. Anybody from Boston? None of any Boston people, okay? You're close, Ricky, but not in Boston.
Connecticut and Maine.
Right, okay. So Rabbi Dick Israel he was like the Hillel director for all of the Boston universities. That's the Ivy League, as well as Boston College, the Jesuit school, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Dick Israel wrote this ethical will as a letter to his unborn child. Okay. To my as yet unborn child, I'm sitting in the hospital waiting room. It's late. Though expectant fathers are supposed to be nervous, I am more restless than worried, and I wish that you would arrive already. Observing the children of friends, I suppose it may be some time before I will once again have this opportunity to address you in as much quiet as I have available this evening. Since talking to you at this time in the waiting room would merely raise questions if I did it out loud, I shall commit this address to writing and deliver it at some presently unknown and undesignated time. There are matters that seem far more significant. He just said, I'm full of expectation, though not about whether you're a boy or a girl. I don't have the least interest. 5 or 6 children from now, if the law treat me shabbily, I might have some feelings about that question, but I don't know. He had a very, very nice sense of humor. But the more significant matters are these. It is, for example, very important to me that you be fun, not so that you should keep me amused, though I shouldn't mind that, but more significantly, that you should be joyful. Now, out of all the values, he starts with, he wants his children to be joyful. It appears that wherever you turn out to be, you are likely to be named after my father, who was Yitzchak. So that somehow your name will have to do with laughter or happiness, if you remember that story. That's what the word means. It seems right. I do not commend earnestness to you as your chief virtue, but joy. That does not mean that I don't want you to care about others. I want that very much. May you be able to be either kind or angry for others' sakes. You will know which is appropriate when the time comes. Even more, may you be willing from time to time to risk doing something that may turn out to be foolish for the sake of a wise objective. Tonight, I'm particularly conscious of our responsibilities to make the world a better place. Since it is with mixed feelings of guilt and relief that I am now sitting in the hospital rather than driving to Montgomery, Alabama, to participate with my friends and colleagues in marches for civil rights. I write all this to warn both of us that I should not try to live out my deficiencies through you. But at the same time, I do not plan to abandon all my goals and aspirations for you just because they happen to be mine also. One want that I think I shall not give up on is that I want you to be clearly and irrevocably Jewish. I do not know if my way will be your way, but your way must be a real way and a serious way. I won't give an inch on that one. It's perhaps a sign of our time that I am already taking a defensive posture on this issue. Perhaps for you, being Jewish will be easy and relaxed and not the struggle and effort it has been for me. But I don't feel compelled to wish you any easy time of it. Valuable things usually cost quite a bit. Perhaps part of your struggle will be with me, but I want you to be happy, caring, and Jewish. How I am going to get you to be any of those, now that's where my anxiety is. I don't have the vaguest notion of what it means to be a parent or how one goes about that task. Doing what comes naturally is clearly no panacea. People have been doing it for years, and we can see what the results have been. But then what alternatives have I but to promise you that I will try hard and to hope that you won't have to pay too much for my on-the-job training. If you try to forgive my mistakes, I'll try to forgive yours. We're both going to make them lots of times. Alas, my noble sentiments are rapidly leaving me as I slowly become engulfed by a desire to sleep and by my impatience for you, or at least for the doctor to appear with joyous tidings. The Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's God, the Holy One, blessed be God, is clearly helping me in this area at this moment. In any event, my wishes for you and for the Messiah are the same at this moment. May you both come speedily. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that a lovely one? Okay.
That is better than the one you did when you were dying, I think.
Okay. I want to do one more and then give you the handout that we can talk through, and then I'll come back to things. Okay. Dearest children, from the time that you were just little babies, Daddy and I have tried to show you what was really important in the world, to you and for you, not by mere words, but more importantly, by our deeds. I hope you will always remember this way of life through which we all found such feelings of joy and family togetherness. We tried to let you know why it was so important to be an honest human being. First, by always being honest with yourself. You cannot help but be honest and honorable to others. Be proud of yourself, not only in who and what you are, but also in what you do to make the world a more decent world for others less fortunate than you. Be compassionate and charitable to them. Try to share what you have in a real way with those who can benefit by your caring. Fight for what you believe in, and though your path may not be an easy one, know that your concern adds strength to others who need it, as well as adding strength to yourself. Remember how important our Jewishness was to us. Our day-to-day living was enriched by our living as Jews, from the joyous celebration of Shabbat with Kiddush and lighting candles, to Seders, to building a sukkah, and all the rest. Try to observe as many of the mitzvot as you can, as many as are meaningful to you. Remember that by observing them, you are also re-cementing your ties to all the Jews in history. And never forget that history, through which Jews, some of them, have survived. It is so very much for this reason that you must remember how important your being Jewish must be for the survival of the Jewish people. Think of Eretz Yisrael often, and as you give up your allowance money to plant trees in Israel, so continue to be generous to her in an even more meaningful way. Remember how much Israel means to us as Jews. Remember to always study, not just book reports or piano or guitar lessons as you do now, or soon in college to prepare for your role in life, but even more as you grow older. Never grow too old to learn. Realize how much there is to know, for when you stop studying or lose the desire to learn, a part of you is lost also. Our tradition stresses Torah lishma, that's Torah for the love of study. I don't mean to limit you with Torah, but Torah is still the greatest guide to a better life that I know. Our family has always had what we call togetherness. We've loved together, laughed together, cried together, played together, fought together. We always cared about each other. Do you remember how the other two of you, this is all the children, would gang up on me when I reprimanded one of you? As you grow up, you may move far away from each other. With families of your own, you probably will teach your children the important things you learned as children yourselves. Try to be open to their generation gap, as I try to, for the world is not static and human understanding is constant. Take time, make time, call and visit each other, share your new families with each other. If as you read this now or in the years to come, you ask yourself, why is Mom writing us all this? We already know it. This is what she's taught us. This is how we have always lived, and we're still trying to live now. Then please know that I will be thankful for having been so fortunate. With all my love, your mother.
Oh.
Okay. So what are you hearing? What are some of the themes
Write them and ask for a copy.
that I've picked out? Peggy, go ahead. Did you say something? Or is it Marcia? It's hard to see.
It's Peggy.
It's Peggy. Hi. I'll introduce Peggy Frank, who's a very, very, very dear friend of many decades.
Welcome.
Right, okay, all right.
Glad to be a part.
So what are you hearing? What are some of the constant themes in these selections that I chose here?
Love, a tremendous love.
Love,
A tremendous
okay?
abundance of.
Love from one generation to another. And love of, not only love of the children, but love of
Judaism.
Judaism.
Mhm.
Tradition.
Tradition,
Yeah,
Okay,
tradition.
but not necessarily imposing the tradition,
No,
saying, remember those traditions
Right.
and then make them relevant, make them meaningful for yourselves.
yes, that.
Okay,
I heard a line in the last one that would be perfect, a perfect argument against the originalists in the Supreme Court. Seriously, there's a line in there that life is not static.
Right.
Right.
It's a very important teaching in and of itself. Because when you're looking at Torah or a
Right.
document, it has certain relevance, abiding relevance, but at the same token, you have to realize that life is going to change over the decades and centuries. And you have to have enough of an open mind to relate maybe what your teachings brought to you to the present time. They may have to be tweaked a little bit,
Mhm.
not changed, not
No.
altered. And I think that
Right.
line is
right,
a good line there.
good, Okay,
Michael, did you say it?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up a little bit with what, because I was traveling again, so I missed some stuff.
right, okay.
But in life, personally,
We can't hear.
Speak to the camera.
Can you speak towards the
Speak to
camera?
the camera, loudly.
Okay, got it. What I personally experienced my 77 years of life is unforeseen circumstances. Things change, and you have to alter your way of doing things. And sometimes it's not changing completely, and sometimes it may come to that, depending on the circumstance. Which I can't, I could give an example, but it would be, I don't know if it would be appropriate, because it's not my intention to get into anything political.
No.
So I'm not going to do that.
Okay,
But sometimes you have to reverse your thinking and consider everything, because you may, your future, past generations may go one way and things may change.
Mhm.
And you may have to alter that and take a look at things and make up your own mind. Indoctrination is not the best thing in the world. Making your own mind up is better, I believe.
Well, I agree, and I think what would be said in here is giving children the confidence
Mhm.
to develop their own, not be indoctrinated,
Mhm.
and not do something just because your parents did,
Yeah.
Well,
right?
that's right. It's not easy to instill wisdom in a person.
True.
Wisdom comes with age. I believe people get wisdom as they get
So
older.
does the Bible say that, okay, right,
Okay,
all
well,
right, okay,
so, I have other things, but I'll leave that for now.
okay, all right. Fine, good. Anything else?
I
Go
was
ahead.
totally impressed with the blessing of the father who is in the waiting room. That was.
Incidentally, the
very
child that he wrote that to became a rabbi also, but that's,
Oh, that's interesting.
That,
right,
it-
okay.
that tells you a lot.
Right.
Because not only is you are given so many wonderful instructions to your child before birth, you becoming aware of yourself.
Good
What
point.
are the things that you need to focus in? I even to the point of saying, you know, I might goof up, I might make a mistake, and please
Mhm.
forgive me, because that's so natural, so normal. But I think every parent should read these things before getting married or having a child, because it's so important. Where are you in a spiritual level when you are getting ready to conceive this child? Are you ready to be a leader? It's not just,
And a role model, a role model, but that doesn't mean you're, as Michael said, that doesn't mean you're looking for total imitation.
no.
I don't want you to be a carbon copy.
No.
They don't even know, the next generation doesn't know what a carbon copy is, right?
Absolutely.
Right. You know, a Xerox copy or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, okay, exactly. Okay, I believe, I'm not certain, because I lost my note, I thought it was in the folder. I believe that this little diagram piece of paper that I'm gonna give to you, it's a little format on how to get started, should you desire that you do want to write an ethical will. Here's another one if we don't have enough. I think, if I remember correctly, I think this one was actually given out at a workshop that was conducted by a professor whose name some of you might recognize, Chaim Gnat.
Oh, sure.
Okay, all right. I was at a workshop that he was doing, with Jewish values in education for rabbis and Jewish educators and things like that. And he talked about ethical wills, and I think that's where I got this. I believe. I don't remember exactly. But so these are the suggestions. Who are you writing this to? And why? I write this to you, my child, my grandchild, my friend, my student, my disciple, in order to what? Give you what? Insight, wisdom,
Right.
Or a path to wisdom, perhaps, whatever it might be. A little bit of history.
Remember.
Our children don't always know the history.
Right.
And that should be written down, or today we would talk about oral histories, I suppose. Right? And then as a way of talking about, yes, there's personal history. Who are the people who strongly influenced you, and what were some of the events that helped shape your life, that helped you develop your own confidence and conviction in making the decisions that you made?
Mhm.
Okay. Religious observances and insights. This is an assumption that the children are being brought up to. In our age, that may not be the most valid assumptions, but that's what we're talking about here. Which of the Jewish rituals have the most meaning to me? Not because they have to have the same meaning for you, okay? But as you learn more about me, hopefully you'll learn more about yourselves.
Mhm.
That's the target. And the specific teachings, what are some of and that's what I want to, we'll come back to that number 2 under religious observances to share for a minute. And then also ethical ideals, we're calling this ethical will after all, right? What are some of those ideals that found expression in my life, either with examples or illustrations, or just a list? Compassion, honesty, and why are those that seem to be the most striking for you? And I would like to suggest to you the following. Like I said, help the homeless, help the poor, whatever it might be. And then some, closing personal wishes and whatever. And if you want to turn it into a blessing, may God do such and such for you, whatever. Yes, Michael, I got you. Okay, I just wanted to use that.
A will of Jewish values.
Exactly, absolutely. So go back to, in this context, and if you want to write something, you're welcome to. But in this context, under let's just share with each other in this block that says religious observances and insights. The rituals of most meaning to me, either today or through my life or whatever, are or have been, or the specific teachings, call it a value, call it a quotation, a mitzvah. If you had to identify, if you were writing something right now, if this was a homework assignment or an in-class assignment, whatever, what would be some of those quotes?
Well, you know mine.
I know yours is
We know
Micah
Micah
6:8, right?
6:8.
Okay, I know Ricky's, Micah 6:8. Okay, do you want to tell us,
Justice,
you
love
want to tell us
mercy,
what it is?
Do
Okay.
justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. And then I sum that up completely into just walk humbly with your God. So there really is only one that, you walk humbly with your God.
Okay. All right. Who else would have, again, a quotation or a particular value or a particular ritual that stands out more than others? Chris, what?
To me, as a Shema. Absolutely.
Why?
Why?
Okay, so how would you phrase it as an ethical will? Would you say to your children, recite the Shema, or please know that whenever I say the Shema, it means what to me?
Right, to me, it is a closeness to God, recognizing Him as my own, understanding or trying to teach my children to believe in the one that I believe. And don't necessarily mean you have to believe the way I believe,
Right.
but I want you to understand that there is only one God. And it's an invitation for me on a daily basis to come near God.
Was there a specific encounter or experience or whatever that brought you to that?
I think Israel.
insight?
Uh-huh,
Going to
I think
Israel.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
In a particular place in Israel?
Yes, Mount of Olives
Aha, okay. The cemetery or
Cemetery.
this? I'm a mind reader, look at that. I get it. Right, I know, I get it. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Yes, Michael, please.
One thing I would put in there is to keep the religion of Judaism alive and well. And,
By doing what? How?
well, with making a list of things that I believe that needs to be listed. Judaism, the way I see it, is going towards sometime in the future, going towards disappearance because of the transition from the Orthodox now to what is that?
Well, let's say assimilated, right?
Secular Jews.
No. Well, what's after Reform? It's
Conservative.
thank you.
Green Valley.
From Orthodox now to Reconstruction. And so it's tearing away of I can see it, it's tearing the way of the fabric of Judaism to a point where Jews will be in the world, but not the religion. That's what I see.
By religion, in that you mean like religious practice and
Yeah,
observance?
the practices,
Okay.
the very practices of
Can you have the practices and the rituals aside from the ethical and the values? Or do they, somebody who says, I don't need to light candles, I don't need to do this, I don't need to keep
Well,
kosher,
ritual.
but I feel myself and I behave as a
Ritual,
Jew.
and see, some people don't put any emphasis on ritual. I do, and there are
Right.
people like me.
Oh,
Ritual is
there are-
very,
There are
very,
millions like you.
well, yeah.
Maybe not, maybe not
You know,
exactly
because
like
that
you. but
ritual-
sorry.
Is the glue, is what keeps the religion together. The certain practices in there,
Yeah.
because I light my candles every Friday. And I say my prayers all the time, every Friday for everybody here, you and your family, everybody. I have a whole list and I spend a lot of time. I don't know how many people here do that. You know, it's not my concern, but I'm very happy to say that I do that. All the names on the list that you do, you know, I gave you for the mission
Right,
bearer,
uh-huh.
plus more, they're all on there. I prayed, my dear friend Marty Cohen, and now Susan, you know, it's not a joke, I mean it, it's very important to me.
And do you think that you do that because you're Jewish? Or is it because that's the kind of person that you are, irrespective of?
I grew up that way, okay? My grandparents and
Yeah,
my parents
okay.
taught me. So that's what I know. That's what I know. And I'm 77, I'm not gonna change now. I just continue with what I was
I
taught.
wouldn't want you to,
You see?
certainly with that, I wouldn't want
It's
you
a
to
lovely
change.
tradition.
I
and it
appreciate
means
the,
something to
appreciate
you.
the
you know,
prayer.
and it's all
Combine
good.
that with what Sue said earlier about the transitioning, I mean, the gradual changing, the originalists, you know, with the Supreme Court, you know, et cetera, that the core is still there, but some of it changes around the core, but that doesn't mean that the core still stays solid. I'll put it that way. So that the ritual may
Okay,
or may
so
not,
that-
yeah,
Right. So,
may or may not
but
be important.
ultimately,
but
the question is,
changes.
what is that?
Yeah.
What is that
The
core?
core.
Exactly.
What, you know, what is that
Right.
core? Because all of the different, whether they're rituals, whether they're customs, whether they're mitzvot,
Tradition,
you know,
tradition.
wherever they came from, and a lot of them, we don't know where they came from, but they come to teach or enhance or, what's the English word? I got the Hebrew word in my head, but not the English word. To you know, to make this particular act more beneficial,
To elucidate.
more endearing, more meaningful, more relevant, you know,
Elucidate, yeah.
whatever.
Right.
You know, so use Michael's example of lighting the candles and saying prayers and thinking of everyone who's in need or ill or whatever. You know, where did that come from? Go back longer than your grandparents,
Oh, yeah.
you know, but it's not in the Torah anywhere. So some Jewish, you know, person or whatever, or community said, this is something we should do. The world needs us to be doing it. This is something that will enhance. That's the word. That's the verb I was looking for.
Yeah.
To enhance. You know, that this will enhance our existence as a family and as a people. You know, and whatever. So we're going to put it into our usage, into our religious practice. You know, and what these things seem to be saying is, sure, here's a suggestion that the more important thing is the value or the ethic, the moral imperative. And here are ways that our people have done that and reminded themselves and taught about it throughout the generations. You know, who else? Okay, who else has one? Please, Sue.
I don't know that it's strikingly Jewish, but I think it is. For me, listen with all your heart and discover what the world needs of you to help improve what's happening and give it of yourself.
Yeah.
Give it.
You just used at least four different verbs.
Gotta do it.
Okay,
Got
all
it.
right. You
Can't
know,
do one.
first of all, you said listen,
Yes.
which is Shema,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sorry.
I said something to somebody the other day because we did our song thing here, you know, 2 weeks ago, whatever. I did another one back at Quail Creek. And I said, I have no problem in remembering lyrics from 50 years ago.
I know.
You know,
You can't remember it.
right? No, but I can't remember exactly what you just said. But I did notice that there were four different verbs. It started with here. You had a couple others, and then give. But I don't remember what was in the
I
middle.
always
But, right,
Figure
okay.
out what
You
you,
say-
what
I
you,
think that,
Yeah.
you know, discover what the world
Discover.
truly needs of you.
Right,
and
uh-huh.
help improve it. To
So,
give
Exactly.
something back. that
Exactly, exactly.
improves.
You know, so in each of those verbs, each of those sentences is not only a Jewish ethic, but it also is a mitzvah. It also is
Yeah.
something that we're commanded to do by God,
Mhm.
by our people, and by our sense of who we are as human beings. Right. How about there on the screen? Marcia, Peggy, either of you have a quote or a particular ritual that you would specifically pass on to the children and grandchildren?
You're muted.
You're on
Peggy,
mute.
you're muted.
You're on mute.
Peggy, you're muted. Okay.
Passing on to believe in oneself, children and grandchildren, and believe from those things that have been passed to you and that you have learned in traditional ways and non-traditional ways.
So self-confidence, self-esteem,
yeah.
Yes.
okay. Can you link that to a particular Jewish quote or story or character?
I'll let you do
I'll
that.
leave it to the rabbi to do that, I know. Okay. Thanks. Anybody jump in with that?
Let's see.
With self-confidence, self-esteem, self-worth?
Well, self-esteem comes from a personal accomplishment,
Okay,
see?
Yeah.
So that one particular
Beyond,
word that has to be developed.
okay. I mean, even, and the confidence sometimes doesn't always mean using it using it correctly.
Yeah,
You know.
self-esteem is a phrase used, and usually when people say, you've got self-esteem, it sounds like you're putting yourself high, but it just means to judge yourself. It's neither positive nor negative. I mean, I can.
As opposed to
esteem-
self-worth,
Exactly,
right, okay.
yeah. The word esteem is not necessarily something praiseworthy or something negative. It's just, how do I see myself?
Mhm. And to carry it through into this context,
Yeah.
how do I see myself and how do I see myself in relation to
Others.
my family, my people, my God?
yeah.
Okay, I was asking for like a story or a particular ritual or experience. Think of Jacob,
Jacob.
Jacob, God must be in this place.
Right.
And now I know myself a little more because I have had this vision of God.
Absolutely.
Right, okay,
That was a good point.
okay, all right. Okay, anything else, or I'll go back to some more examples?
Well,
Go ahead.
under personal history, number 2, events that helped shape my life. And then I added on,
Oh,
and
yeah.
therefore yours.
Because there wouldn't be a you if
And
that's right.
Exactly.
Very serious events in my childhood, raising, and early adulthood affected my children.
Affected your
Your
parenting.
My
parents.
parents, exactly.
Okay, sure.
So, things that I might not have shared with, mine is in 2 parts. I have an ethical will.
Good,
The first is that fills in the personal history side. Stuff that my kids don't know about me, but that did affect them. So it's not an excuse, it's an explanation
right,
of,
okay.
what happened and why,
Mhm.
And then the second part is the individual to my 2 daughters,
Yeah.
which more fits in with, but some of these are be this, don't do this, whatever. But I thought that was a very important part of this so that the kids could understand. And now my granddaughter is about old enough. I mean, she's old enough now to include her in this.
Uh-huh.
But, for so many, because I wrote this many years ago. And I reread it regularly and I find that I only change the individual things. The ones to the individual children, not the main part. My story is my story. This is what I want you to know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is what affected you because of my story.
Got it, sure.
So that's the first part. I didn't reread it I didn't reread it this
Well,
morning.
now you will after.
Yeah, I know.
After this, and
But I did reread the individual things,
Mhm.
and they were more, I found, admonitions. Like to one of my daughters, I'll just say that anger is not a healthy, emotion.
okay.
You know, is one of the
No,
things.
no explanations
Right.
needed, that's all right.
So, things like that. And one of the points that I make with my one daughter that has my granddaughter is the job of the parent is to give roots and wings. When I
Right.
first,
Good,
And-
good.
I
like that.
yeah, she was very good at roots.
Want a pen?
Yeah, thank you. Sure.
My daughter was very good at roots, but almost too good, just the holding on too tight. I was more into the wings, go fly, so
Right.
the balance of those two
Uh-huh.
is one of my things.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask, is there a difference between morality and ethical? Personally, I see ethical as a legal term more than a moral term, because ethical is used in law quite a bit, more than morality, ethics.
Yeah.
And when one goes to law school for many years, they are taught to think from a legal position, not a moral position. And they have in law school
Right.
a class on ethics.
Sure.
It's called
Mhm.
ethics. It's not called morality.
No.
It's not called, it's called ethics.
Ethics in the context of the philosophical, by philosophical, how to figure something out, right? As opposed to as morality, which comes from the society, the mores
Well,
of the society, but the ethics have a different background.
well, I would leave a will of morality over a will of ethics. And that, maybe one day we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
But that's what I see is what's missing is the morality here. For some reason, I just see it slightly different, maybe different than you, and we can disagree on things. That's
Of course, we can disagree,
You know,
but
that's-
and I think for most people, and it may not be correct, it may not be etymologically and linguistically correct, but most people would use the words almost interchangeably. Whether that's right or not, but again, most people, but it's perfectly okay to question, well, which do you mean? Do you mean things that,
Well-
ethical statements that come out of a particular discipline,
Yeah.
or moral statements
and-
that come
and-
from
In this
personal
case,
practice?
Rabbi, in this case with this ethical will, I place morality, the
Okay.
word morality,
Right,
and I would try to develop a discussion about that higher than ethics.
okay. Okay.
Because
fine.
morality stands out to me to mean what's moral, what's really the top thing to do. The
And
very
what is
highest.
what is the very top?
Yeah,
I don't have an answer for that right now, but I would think about it.
Okay,
Because that's what's missing a lot, I think, in all society is placing a high value on thinking. Think a second time,
Mhm.
think about things before you jump and you pull the lever or this and that. Think very, very carefully. I think that's what's missing in society. Good, clear thinking.
okay. Got it. Please, Bev.
Well, I was a dental
I
hygienist
know,
for
and
many
the
years.
ethical is gonna say, be careful with the RV. I know it's gonna say.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, anyway.
No,
Sorry
anyway,
about that.
and we had to have continuing education credits every year, like 40, I think it was. And 2 of them had to be ethics. we had to have 2 credits of ethics every single year.
From dental hygienists.
Dental hygienists,
So
dentists
what
also
was-
had
what
to
was
have
one of
them.
the ethics
Well,
that they talked about?
this is where ethics and
Yes.
morality are
Interchange.
interchangeable.
Yeah.
Because this is what it's,
Does ethics come as a way of bringing morality into the world?
You
that's
could
a
make that
really
case.
good, that is a really
very-
good way of
yeah.
putting
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
To Michael's point, and I don't
I
totally
like that.
disagree with your differentiation between ethics and morality, but in the English language, there's no question it is used interchangeably. And most people, it's a given that they'll understand when you say the ethics of something, that there is morality implied in there. I had an interesting discussion, and I'm not going to go into how this evolved, with Barbara Jordan, who was teaching at the University of Texas, and she was dying to institute the teaching of ethics to business majors. And she made a very good case for it legally. And she had Lou Gehrig's disease and was
Right.
really
Right.
struggling with that toward the end of her life. But I had an argument at the same time with a business major who said, by the time we get to university, you can't teach us ethics. And I said, rubbish. At any level, ideally, it should start this high. But if it's not there from this high, you can certainly try to teach it and make sure that the major incorporates
Mhm.
a part of understanding of ethics in the practice of business. And she really she struggled very hard to get this through. I don't know if she ultimately achieved it at the University of Texas, but I think it's a failing in our educational system.
MSUM
Yeah.
has
Business.
it in the business because Claudia was teaching it when she came, moved back. Claudia Murphy, who actually married my ex. I mean, she's a very nice person.
Ethically? or-
That's funny.
Maybe, but not more.
There we go again.
Yeah.
So what we're
But
gonna say,
anyway, yeah, and so she was, teaching, that was one of the classes that she
Right,
was teaching in the philosophy
Yeah, some of it
department,
is,
and she
is,
was teaching that
what's that,
to
what's that
business
statement about,
majors.
pornography? I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
Yes. That was a
You know,
Supreme Court
right.
justice.
Yeah, right, so, some of it falls into that. I know what's
Yes.
unethical,
Right.
but
Can you
whatever.
repeat your sentence? You said ethics brings morality into.
Ethics are,
Yeah.
ethics, the practice of ethics, or the understanding of ethics, the intention is to bring morality
Yeah.
Something like
Into,
that.
what
I
was the
think
into the
that's-
world.
Okay,
Yeah,
just,
I think
right.
that's a pretty safe statement.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I really do. It's a good.
All right, so I want to get back to a couple
Yeah, I
examples.
like that.
Okay. You may over back here on the other side, yes, Les.
You ignored me, but that's okay.
I know.
You
You
from
gave me
our-
permission to
From our
ignore you.
left flank, from the left flank.
You're not on camera, Les, so you.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh,
back when I
oh.
was younger, we did oral histories of veterans, and some of the people you're talking here, your life experience defines your children.
Right.
Okay. We interviewed Jim Swobodny, so I don't know what his background was religiously or anything else, but we interviewed him on his experiences in Vietnam, which were significant. The best thing that ever happened, his son sent Jim an email and he said, "Dad, I didn't know."
Exactly. That's,
Oh, my.
That was the whole answer.
Yeah.
Dad,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh.
And if there's
Oh, my gosh.
any statement that makes people, that should make people want to do this.
it's that, yeah.
Dad,
Yes.
I
Right,
didn't
right,
know.
right.
Mom, I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the segue, Les. Were you reading on my notes over there?
No.
Okay.
But that's why I have
That
my
is
personal
so
history,
good.
Yeah,
because I know my
Um,
kids don't know.
Another reason to write an ethical will is that your children may know who you are,
Wow.
but they don't know what you are.
Yes.
Okay,
Why?
right?
Right.
And their children may not. As a rabbi, I frequently speak to young people when they become bar and bat mitzvah. I ask them, what's your Hebrew name? Okay, who are you named for?
Mm,
They usually have some kind of a vague answer, right? Then I ask them, what was that person like? What did they do? Why did your parents feel that they should have you share their name?
Do they have
Okay.
answers for that?
But almost never,
I would think so. Yeah.
almost never,
I would think
okay?
that's the
And my
case, yeah.
So imagine that as a gift to the child, if the person for whom he or she was named had left behind this letter telling who she was, what she stood for, what he lived for, where, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If our children are willing to accept our property after we are gone, they ought to be willing to at least listen to our values.
Exactly,
Right?
I say that to make it sound better.
Mordecai Kaplan said it in a different context. We are entitled to, our generation is entitled to a vote, not a veto, but a vote in their lives. Okay, so there are three, summarizing, there are three reasons why the custom of writing an ethical will has nearly disappeared, and why this whole thing is to try to, reemerge. One is that most Jewish people are ignorant of the tradition as being a specifically Jewish practice. Okay, all right. Although, and I defer a little bit here to those who have more psychological and social work training, including one or two up there. Okay, all right. Therapists frequently use it.
Mhm.
All right. What are the values that you
Right.
find important for you and that you would hand up? Okay. Second reason why the practice has gone astray. We're more focused, and some of us were saying this, we're more focused on the now.
Mhm.
Okay. And the past seems almost irrelevant,
Oh, never.
and the future is too unpredictable. Okay. Judaism says exactly the opposite.
Yeah,
Judaism says the past is always
absolutely.
important,
Uh-huh.
and recognizing and preparing for the future and trying to improve the future is vital. Okay. And then the third, and as parents or grandparents, we might accept this. Sometimes we hesitate to impose our thinking, our values, our opinions on others, whether it's our children or whether it's somebody we meet or in a session like this. But Judaism insists that we have beliefs, okay, that we concretize our beliefs, that we share our convictions, especially with our children, but also with our family and our friends and our associates. And Michael and I look and smile at each other. And we'll disagree a lot, but that's okay, because we have our beliefs and we have our opinions, and and we're passionate about them.
Yeah, I couldn't do that with an Orthodox rabbi, so I appreciate what you
You
said.
could,
Okay, no.
with some Orthodox rabbis.
Not the ones
I
I
can
know.
do it with Orthodox
I
rabbis.
can't.
Okay, all right. So here are a couple other that I want to share with you. The names, in at least two cases, the names will be familiar. Remember Shalom Aleichem? Not the song, but the writer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
all right. I am a plain person,
Mhm.
so bury me among the plain people, the workers and the common folk, so that my tombstone may honor the simple graves around me. At my grave and throughout the years on the anniversary of my death, my remaining son and sons-in-law, if they are so inclined, sorry,
Yeah.
for the women, my remaining son and sons-in-law, if they are so inclined, should say Kaddish for me. And if they do not wish to do so, or if it is against their religious conviction,
Ooh,
they need not do so.
It's no good.
Okay, he said that.
Yeah.
All right, Shalom Aleichem. Okay, And attached to his will, his ethical will, if you, is a Yiddish poem that is indeed inscribed on his tombstone. His granddaughter wrote this translation of it. Okay? Here lies a plain and simple Jew who wrote in plain and simple prose. He wrote humor for the common folk to help them forget their woes. He scoffed at life and mocked the world. At all its foibles he poked fun. The world went on its merry way and left him stricken and undone. And while his grateful readers laughed, forgetting troubles of their own, midst their applause, God only knows, he wept in secret and alone.
Interesting. Very
Okay.
interesting.
Sadness, sadness. All right. This
Is it
is,
working? Are they working?
Yeah.
okay, so this is one particular section from a fellow by the name of William Abramovitz. And I forget how it came, it was, it came in the research that I was doing. To my children, in material things, I have seen to it that you will not want. These are the least important things, although the lawyer has prepared a Megillah to safeguard them. Remember to be Jews, and the rest will follow as surely as day follows night. Our religion is not ritual, but a way of life. To us as Jews, life is its own raison d'etre, its own self-justification. We await neither heaven nor hell. Ritual is only a tool to remind us who we are and of the divine commandments. Jews do not lie, steal, nor bear false witness, pas nicht, as our parents used to say. Such things are simply unbecoming for a Jew. Take care of one another, and in honoring your mother, honor yourselves. I know the love she has lavished on you without any thought of self. He goes on. Marry within your faith, not to please me, but so that you may be happy. Not because Gentiles are inferior, they are not, but because marriage is complex enough without the complicating variables of different viewpoints. You are the bearers of a proud tradition of 4,000 years. Do not let the torch drop in your generation. Never turn away from anyone who comes to you for help. We Jews have seen more suffering than any other people. Therefore, we should care more about other people. That which you give away, whether of money or of yourselves, is your only permanent possession. Don't forget Israel. You can be a builder of the homeland for the remnants of our people. There is no conflict between your obligation as a citizen of our country and your concern for Israel. On the contrary, a good Jew is a better American. Then finally, say Kaddish after me, not for me. Kaddish is the unique Jewish link that binds all the generations of Israel. The grave doesn't hear Kaddish, but the speaker does, and the words will echo in your heart. The only immortality I seek is that my children and my children's children will be good Jews, and thereby they will be good people. Okay, now that's that. I'm not sure 21st century in the Jewish community how well all of that would be accepted, but I shared this last one with you with great pride, the pride of what we say in Hebrew and Yiddish of mishpacha, right? Okay, mishpacha is Hebrew for family. Okay, we're all of the right generation.
Yeah.
Sam Levinson.
Oh,
Anybody remember
Yes.
Sam Levinson?
Yes.
Okay, Sam Levinson was in Detroit, right? Okay, and it's it's mishpucha. Sam Levinson was my aunt by marriage, my aunt's first cousin. Okay, so
Very interesting.
it's kind of close. All right, I did meet him once. Okay. his ethical will and testament to his grandchildren and to children everywhere.
Okay.
That's important.
I leave you my unpaid debts. They are my greatest assets. Everything I own, I owe. 1, to America, I owe a debt for the opportunity it gave me to be free and to be me. 2, to my parents, I owe America. They gave it to me, and I leave it to you. Take good care of it. 3, to my Jewish biblical tradition, I owe the belief that man does not live by bread alone, nor does he live alone at all. This is also the democratic tradition. Preserve it. 4, to the 6 million of my people and to the 30 million other humans who died because of man's inhumanity to man, I owe a vow that it must never happen again. 5, I leave you not everything I never had, but everything I had in my lifetime. A good family, respect for learning, compassion for my fellow man, and some 4-letter words for all occasions. Words like help and give, care, feel, and love.
Well, yeah.
Love, my dear grandchildren, is easier to recommend than to define. I can tell you that like those who came before you, you will surely know when love ain't. You will also know when mercy ain't, and when brotherhood ain't. The millennium will come when all the ain'ts shall have become is's, and all the is's shall be for everyone, even for those people whom you don't like. Finally, I leave you the years I should like to have lived so that I might possibly see whether your generation will bring more love and peace to the world than ours did. I not only hope that you will, I pray that you will. Grandpa Sam.
Beautifully said.
I have a-
He's the one that wrote that wonderful, and it was funny, but it was very true about, so you hate Jews, huh? So I guess you want to give up this shot and this invention. and
Right,
that.
exactly.
And it was hysterical. I read it years ago. It was reprinted a lot of times.
Yep.
I don't know the exact verbiage anymore, but that was a riot.
That was.
Is it
No,
still
he
going
had,
ahead?
he had a radio show, a television
Yeah.
show.
He was a very sweet.
Right,
personality.
yeah, very, very,
Yeah.
you know,
That one is a.
he was a teacher by vocation. originally. Yeah.
If I write a moral will, I would put this in and try to develop it the best I can. I want to ask you this. Is self-defense a moral or ethical concept in Judaism outside of Israel?
Are you asking or you're just telling?
That's a question.
You're asking?
I'm
You're asking
asking.
yourself.
Self-defense. How do you say the word self-defense in Hebrew? Wow.
Defense is Haganah.
How about that? That's amazing.
Probably Haganat Atzmit. Now, there may be a more technical
Self-defense.
translation. But
The English is self-defense. Why did you have such a difficulty answering, because you know Hebrew?
Mhm.
What is the word to self-defense in Hebrew?
I'm saying, literally, if I was translating it, I would translate it as Haganat Atzmit,
That's.
okay? But whether that's, because that's not a new concept, right? Okay, so it might be in the Jewish literature, in the
Well,
Talmud or whatever,
you see,
and I just don't know that term offhand.
That's what I see a problem in Judaism today. There's no self-defense. I'm going to give you an example. Let's take, well, let me say it this way. In my opinion, the Jewish community can take a great lesson from the Black community. What am I talking about? Something happens in the Black community. They rally around it and they make the whole world see it. And I don't agree with the burning and the looting and this and that. I don't agree, but nevertheless, they blow up and they make things happen. You know, the Jewish community can take a lesson from that. Not to loot and not to burn, but to speak up loud when something happens. And you know, I can make a couple of good examples, but I'm not going to get involved with that. But that's why I talk to you about that. Why isn't there an outcry about it? An outcry. As I'll just say and this bears repeating. This one thing bears repeating. Louis Farrakhan, a couple of years ago, publicly said Adolf Hitler was a great man.
Right.
I'll just use that because that's a great example. But you turn that around and say James Earl Ray by a very well-known Jewish leader, if we have any. I don't know. Any Jewish leader, let's just take Joseph Lieberman, for example. Let's say Joseph Lieberman publicly said James Earl Ray is a great man. The Jews would get hammered from coast to coast. You know, that's what I'm talking about.
But
And
I
that's
think
something
also,
that
I
has-
think also the mainstream Jewish community would rise up and say, we disagree with that. We
Sure.
don't believe
Sure they
that
would.
James Earl Ray. Just like much of the black community raised up against Farrakhan.
Yeah,
But we're not gonna go there.
No.
If I may, I just want to, I think you're confusing a couple of things here. The Jewish community has several places where it does take a stand. I think what you're confusing is getting the rest of the world on board. There are differences here. We do speak up for ourselves and we make known what we stand for, but unfortunately, we don't always get the world response that other groups do. There's a difference, and we do certainly defend ourselves. I just wanted to interject that because I think he's confusing some things there.
And there, I mean, Michael, you and I have talked about it. We'll continue to talk about it. And I promise you, there will be an opportunity. You know, we'll have a session or two on responding to anti-Semitism and things like that. It's important, no question.
Yes.
See, what
It is.
Susan said is correct, but the voices are not, it's not loud enough. It's not grand enough. It's just not
And-
big enough. What she says is
right,
correct,
and
but
some
it's a
people-
little tiny, a few little specks here and there, and that's not good enough. It's just not good enough. It has to be huge. It has to be in a very, very big way to get other people, get the Christians on
So
board.
the question is, and not for today,
Right.
but for another time, the question is, why are we not making such a big deal about it? Why does Michael Gervin sitting in Green Valley, Arizona, why do you not hear the voices of the Jewish leaders, and their statements? Are they not saying them? Or if they're saying them, why doesn't the message, reach out and aren't more people aware of it? That's, what's the response? What's the response to? No one is going to question, is there anti-Semitism in our generation? Okay,
Sure.
more than has been
Right.
in decades.
Mhm.
Okay? But so no one's questioning that. The question is, what you're saying is, why doesn't there seem to be more of an uprising, a response to it?
Because of pacifism. That's the
Okay, so
reason.
where does the pacifism come from? That's the question. Why is the mainstream community passive about it?
It's been like this since the beginning of time. That's where it came from the beginning of time.
That's one answer. I'm not sure that that's everyone's answer.
If we
Okay.
went out and started demonstrating and marching, and we'd probably get shot down. I mean, you know, I mean,
But we did it for Soviet Jews.
Mhm.
And Friday night, I'm gonna talk about it. We did it for Ethiopian Jews.
Yes, we saw
Right?
Right.
And why, what Michael's saying is, why don't we do it for ourselves? If we feel endangered, why aren't we doing it for ourselves? All right,
That's
anyway.
another question. Can I-
3:15.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I bring
3:15.
it back?
Okay, and Ricky has announcement. Okay.
No, I
thanks.
want to bring it back to the
Okay.
subject
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
today, the ethical will. I always felt that the ethical will may have been the source of progress. I mean, you start reading.
Well,
about
Proverbs as an ethical will, yeah,
Yeah.
Every one of
Right,
those
sure.
little things in Proverbs.
sure.
Sounds
Right.
like what some father probably
Sure,
said to
yeah.
their
Or,
son.
or a teacher or whatever,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So, but you want me to do this now? Or you?
I'm inviting you to do that now.
Okay,
Are we
all right.
done?
We're,
Well, I have a
yeah,
question.
well, we have a 3:30
Okay.
committee
Oh,
meeting.
Sue has a
Oh, okay.
question.
Yeah, I just got a quick question. What would be one statement from you to your children in an ethical will? What would be at the
Yeah.
top of the list?
Probably, it would probably have two, two facets. One would be related to kindness, and the other would be, find meaning in your Jewishness. One, certainly, the Jewishness is going to be at the top.